So today's big news was that Supercell CEO railed against the Digital Fairness Act. Now, for everybody who's been following TWIG, we discussed in TWIG episode 346, less than 10 episodes away, how EA wants to ban free-to-play games. And today, Supercell CEO released his open letter to the nameless and faceless deep state regulators of European Union. And the letter from Supercell CEO is a rallying cry to save Europe's gaming industry from self-inflicted damage through overreaching regulation. And if you haven't read the letter, in essence, it's this. So what the CEO Ilkka Paananen is saying is that he warns the upcoming EU policy moves, the Digital Fairness Act and the Consumer Protection Cooperation Guidelines all sound very nice, that these two things could break the fundamental mechanics on how games work, particularly in-game currencies and microtransactions, meaning free-to-play games. So in-game currency, according to this act, would be treated as a financial transaction in the same way as virtual currencies such as Bitcoin. So that means that every transaction would thus become a purchase that requires parental approval and is processed via extra pop-up windows, because EU loves pop-ups. This would indeed be a massive disrupt to a flow of today's game. So it's not when you're buying something from the store, it's I'm spending soft currency and it would come up and tell me what the euro price for that would be. So if this goes through, the Europe's 27 billion gaming industry in terms of valuation is in trouble. There's three things that are going to happen. One, it will force studios to rebuild their monetization models that are not around free to play. That's of course not very nice. It pushes companies towards ad-driven games, which is even worse. And most importantly, it drives investment and talent out of Europe. And the call to action that the CEO had with his post for policymakers was, number one, to engage directly with the industry before legislation, which is interesting that he's suggesting that the policymakers should actually listen to the ones they're about to regulate. Number two is to keep the in-game currencies classified as digital content, not as digital money, which makes sense because you can't move around this. And number three is base any future rules on data, not assumptions. That seems pretty reasonable. Eric Kress, you've been talking about proprietary monetization on this podcast for about 5 years, and apparently EU is listening to you. What do you say about this one?
I don't know. I am so torn on this subject. I have kind of talked on both sides of my mouth like over the years on this. First, I will applaud Ilkka for coming out and talking about this. I think, this is something he should be doing given his position in the industry. I think ultimately, likely this is going to get watered down when it passes next year. I still believe that they really want to target under 18, which I still think is a valid goal on their behalf. And over 18, I don't think these regulations will stick. But then again, I could be wrong, right? Because they keep referring in the legislation to vulnerable consumers, right? Which are the under 18 crowd. I would love to get into a debate about the predatory nature of free to play and the aberrant behavior that it normalizes. But, Phil's not here. So I got to wait for Phil to get back and maybe we'll talk about that on a personal level. Like just for me, anecdotally, I don't really see the damage free to play is to the kids, like in my experience, right? I see far more damage from TikTok and other social media than I do free to play.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think fundamentally, free to play is kind of like a training ground for predatory monetization. You know what I'm saying? You're preparing the children for the trappings of gambling.
It's not a gateway drug. Get out of town.
I'm not done.
Get out of town.
I am not done. Right? This is preparing them for the trappings of gambling, desensitizing them from the dopamine rush caused by real gambling. It's a training ground, right? For them to prepare for a life of exposure to DraftKings and all that crap.
Prize Picks.
That's getting
Prize Picks.
Seriously. Yeah, seriously. I'm just joking. Not really. I honestly think that free to play is far more easier for parents to enforce and monitor and restrict because you can track it from a fucking spending perspective, right? Versus things like social media, which they're engaging willy-nilly, and you may be able to hinder the amount of time that they interface with it, but you have no idea what they're actually seeing on a regular basis. So it's so far much harder to manage as a parent, that sort of thing. But again, you have to take this with a grain of salt from a parent who's like, one kid is like hopelessly addicted to fucking social media and the other one who could give a shit, right? So anyway, that's on a personal level. Net, I think cooler heads will prevail. This will be targeted to 18 and under, and they won't destroy the industry. But we do need voices out there getting engaged and getting input into these legislation.
How far reaching is this going to be? Because I look at like apps like TouchTunes, which is a jukebox here. It uses soft currency. So is that also going to have the same regulations? Yes. So it's everything. So the Reddit little like doodads that you can award to people, same thing. You're going to spend 50 cents on awarding this post a little high five. So then TikTok, I think, also has some sort of currency in it. All of this is going to be affected. As long as if they want to do a blanket.
Maybe. But TikTok is primarily ad driven, right? So it's not like. You
can award stuff. Yeah, I need to check. I'm pretty sure at one point. Okay, anything where you can buy little like doohickeys to give to people, that would be included then as well.
Yeah, subscriptions will likely not be.
It's funny what they call unfair and what they are concerned about. I think Eric's right. If the EU really cared about harm, they'd focus on TikTok, not Supercell.
I agree.
Yeah, it feels like the oversight that we're seeing has very little correlation with actual harm, which makes you kind of question why this is happening. It's like everyone's saying so far, like TikTok is rewiring your brain on behalf of the CCP. Influencers are selling detox tea as wellness and gambling apps as a way to get rich quick, like to kids. But games are the focal point because it's like easy. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm with you. I made the same argument. Prize Picks. Sorry, guys. Like Prize Picks is catering towards children, right? Like they are advertising on places where children can go, and they are bringing them into the fold of what gambling looks like for reals, right? And I guess my flippant point, and I'm half joking, is that free to play actually is a training ground, right? It can teach people how to gamble responsibly, potentially, right?
Well, yeah, but the same is true for the Monopoly board game.
Yeah.
Should we ban and tax Monopoly currency too?
Dude, Phil.
Yeah, but I always win, so I'm okay with it.
Phil is absolutely losing his mind listening to this. I just can't wait till next week. He's going to just go on a big fat rant on this. But
I will say though that one of the reasons that games are a great focal point is because it's easy, right? Addicted children are making microtransactions. Your kids are spending real money on fake stuff. This is great sound bites.
It's also $30 billion in the EU, right? It's a big market.
I feel like this argument initially kicked off and this is like a 2019, 2020 argument that's just kind of hitting the ground now. Do you know what I mean? So your point, Josh, made me think of this. I feel like, the TikTok to me, I agree, is more of a time suck. I think it's more damaging for people, especially for younger kids, growing up on that, seeing what they think perfection should be. And it's just an absolute lie. But if everything moved as fast as it should, that should be the pivot now, but it's not. We move very slowly. So maybe then in 5 years, then it'll be them going after TikTok. But where this is playing catch up to practices that were investigated however many years ago that are finally hitting the floor. I don't know.
I think you're totally right. If you look at how ad tech works, especially tech in general, Google just had an antitrust ruling in September of this year. And it's for stuff they've been doing since the mid 2000s.
It's such a lag.
And so, of course, these companies are going to be hyper aggressive because they know they get 10, 15, 20 years of reaping the benefits. It's a logical move to this kind of level of slowness.
Yeah. There's two sides to it, as all of you have said. On one hand, the EU's motivation is by no means misguided. Free-to-play games, for all their accessibility and the behavioral design and monetization psychology. I was a product manager. That's how I started my career. I was studying on how to get money from nothing, from players. So that kind of blurs the line between fun and financial transaction, especially when there are kids being involved. And when we start talking about the latest ground of monetization techniques, from loot boxes to different currencies, how many currencies there are in an RPG game, these limited time offers, these personalized offers driven by AI, LTV platforms, they exploit known cognitive biases. And the regulators are reacting to a decade, as you mentioned, this has been going on, to a decade of this growing unease with the model. So their goal if you're a regulator, is transparency, it's consent, it's control. And the proposed rule may be really, really clunky and overbearing, but the intent is sound. You have to give them that. And then you go to other side, our side. So games for sure aren't banks. They're entertainment products that depend on frictionless interaction and that emotional flow when you get deep into a game and really get sucked into it. And this EU proposal treats every tab and in-game button like you're signing a mortgage, and it requires separate authorization, euro-denominated breakdown of the cost of the freaking soft currency in a game, and then withdrawal rights probably to it. So this EU's bureaucratic sledgehammer that they keep hitting everything with doesn't just target this predatory monetization that Chris has been talking about. It targets entire free-to-play business model that allows games to reach billions for free. And when it comes to this letter, I think, as Chris said, it's really great that Ilkka, in his powerful position, is not afraid to put his name forward, his authority forward, and speak on behalf of the industry. I think the way the letter was written is very clever, because on the first sentence, he talks about Clash of Clans, which is his game, Candy Crush, which is, the friendly game on the other side of the bay.
Our
and
game.
Then he kind of puts, your game, Microsoft game. But he also puts Minecraft, which is another your great game, and Witcher in the same sentence as European games. But the way I understand it, the regulation is targeting free-to-play, so Clash of Clans and Candy Crush, not Minecraft or Witcher that are outside of this conversation as premium titles. It's weird that there's no other founders who are talking about this topic. Like Ricardo is nowhere to be seen. Marcin, Michal from CD Projekt Red, they're, thrown to the wolves as franchise creators. They're not saying anything. So it's kind of Ilkka and then the official governmental body of European gaming industries. I don't even know who's in charge of that. And yeah, sad there's nothing democratic about this. There's no vote. There's nobody defending this case. It's just bureaucrats doing their thing. And even the call to action in this letter is not for the people. It's, hey, regulators, if you happen to be looking at this, it'd be really great that you would make your decision based on data, not what somebody printed out of Reddit for you. And yes, I also respect the irony in this one, because for at least a year, Ilkka and other prominent investors in Europe, such as Harry Stebbings, who has a major VC and runs a 20-minute VC podcast, they've been pushing this Project Europe as the next big thing and talking about how Europe is really the continent as a hotbed for innovation and startups. And today, Ilkka posts this letter and Harry posts a letter where the CEO of Revolut is piecing out of Europe and going to Dubai because of I think it was taxation of uncapitalized gains. So, irony, that's not a good thing. I live in Europe, but it was funny, I have to say.